Welcome to Alpha Wolf Capital. I'm Tim, and I want to personally thank you for stopping by. This channel is designed to help small companies, both public and private, gain exposure with potential consumers, investors, even partners. Take, for example, today's guest, Alan Evans of Unusual Machines. Unusual Machines is a hardware play that has been establishing themselves as the supply chain for U.S. made drones and FPV drones, first person view. Up until last week, it was looking like a pure hardware play. That is until they announced the acquisition of Aloft, which is still in progress but enables uh, Unusual Machines to provide a software as a service product. And it's a very exciting product indeed. Uh, think of air traffic controller for drone flights. But I'm going to let Alan Evans tell you more about this acquisition and why it's so critical for Unusual Machines. This is not to be taken as investment advice. I am not a certified financial planner. This is for education and entertainment purposes only. I encourage everyone to do their own due diligence. Hey everybody, Tim from Alpha Capital coming at you with a really exciting story. Follow up to one of my favorites, Unusual Machines, and now I guess we'd have to call you Unusual Machines and Software, right?
Machines have software in them, so I think it's still just unusual machines.
Oh, you got a lot of exciting stuff going on, right? You've been busy traveling the globe. Alan Evans from Unusual Machines. UMAC is the symbol. I know you've been busy, man. So you went off traveling around the globe. What were you doing there?
We went to go check on all our component suppliers and some other international partners. For instance, like our new NDAA compliant camera final assemblies in Taiwan.
Okay.
And so just go review everything to be sure that we're not getting reboxing, where people buy in from China and trade it out. One of the really neat things is in like Taiwan, they call it no red. They have their own rules for not China and a different language everywhere. It's pretty funny. In India, all the Indian companies have a no China supply chain stuff if they're doing anything in the way. So it's really interesting to go just check on everybody. And it used to be you'd go to China and just go into Shenzhen, and that was your whole supply chain visit. But now it's distributed all over the place.
Right. And you're happy with your trip?
Yeah, it went better than we expected. I think vendors at different levels of sophistication. Met some of our partners in the U.S. too. We were out in California as part of it, and generally speaking, we feel pretty good. And like somebody could come audit us and go all the way down the chain, and we'd pass.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, I mean, that's pretty cool. You had another approval besides the controller, right? You have
Yep, our motor controller and ESC, which is an electronic speed controller, just got put on the blue list. That'll be available for sale. We're targeting March. We're just doing some final testing and ramping that up. Our camera is now for sale. We've sold a bunch of those. That's NDAA compliant. That's submitted for the blue list, and we have other parts in the queue still. Yeah, trying to get a whole blued FPV drone, all the parts for it done as quickly as possible.
okay. And how is the FPV drone? Uh, so you're making that, if I'm not mistaken, for Red Cat, right? Aren't you doing the FPV drone?
We're the partners for the Fang, and so you see some 7-inch drones. We're getting pretty close, and really, what's great is once all the parts are blue and the drone is blue, you can trade out blue parts for other blue parts, and you don't have to recertify the drone. So we're really just trying to get a first one out there so that Red Cat or other partners can sort of configure it then how they want by taking out sort of the stock parts and building whatever they think is necessary for their end customer.
Okay, okay. And then I guess the thing that you caught me off guard and I thought was just a brilliant and underappreciated, really, in my mind, acquisition. And I want to emphasize an acquisition that was almost all stock, which is my favorite way to see an acquisition get done. right?
Yeah, so we recently announced our definitive agreement with Aloft. I'm super excited about it. Had to keep my mouth shut for a long time because when an entity is 70% of the market and doing new things, if you talk about it, I would have gotten myself a bidding war with private equity or others who saw the value. I've known John and Josh, the founders, for a long time. They're super smart. I'm super excited to work with them and really excited about their new AirBoss product, which really lets everybody in a jurisdiction share the right amount of drone information with each other. So, like in New Jersey, nobody knew what was going on. But if there was AirBoss, like CNN is already a customer, Fox News is a customer, individual pilots use it to log in, and then police and fire and hospital flights can all share the right amount of data and not have to share exactly what the mission's for or anything. But then somebody in the governor's office could have looked, when they got a phone call and been like, oh, yeah, no, that flight's legitimate. They don't need to know if it's a 3-letter agency or whatever. If it's in the system, then the right flags are there, then and nobody has to worry about it. So very excited about that coming out. Now, of course, we were talking about this before New Jersey happened, but then New Jersey happened, or like the terrible incident, the Palisades fire, where a drone hit a plane, and you're starting to look and you're seeing airspace management become kind of a really big deal. So the timing and the interest has really worked out. And then, yeah, those guys, they're great. It's we call it a paper swap, not an exit. Like you're going to trade your equity for some of this equity, and we're going to keep building. And there's liquidity there, and they can be part of a bigger engine. And so it was all stock except for I think like 40 grand that we had to pay out to unaccredited investors just to not, do anything silly. So yeah, like wait, for all stock for a company that meets our profile, which is generating revenue, going to be cash flow neutral, we have by far and away a market leader in the domestic segment. And I think in the hype around the defense markets, which is valid, everybody's just ignored the Countering Chinese Communist Party's Drone Act, which is going into the NDAA, which kicks out all the Chinese drones from the US domestic market. And that's like $5 to $10 billion a year in just hardware sales. So we some just it feels like it's an ignored segment. So we just decided we'd go there first. There's a whole lot more drone flights than there are airplane flights. There's only about 40,000 airplane flights a year.
Right.
There's, millions of drone flights that go up and down. And so when you look at the future airspace and coordinating, it's, I think, going to be amazing, yeah, to integrate it all and necessary. The sky's really big. And for a long time, we've operated on big sky theory, where in 3D space, it's hard for things to intersect without seeing each other. But now, like, okay, now we need some traffic lights in the sky and basic let's all drive on the right kind of rules. And the FAA is looking at putting that together over the next 2 years for Part 108. And once those come together and get integrated, that's really going to open up the domestic market. That's going to be BV loss and all these other things. And we're, at Unusual Machines, like defense is important. It's important for us to build in the US for those defense customers. But we don't want to get so distracted by defense that we miss what is the monster opportunity, which is like autonomy in the US market. And when you look at the current administration with Musk and Trump, and they're really pro drone, but they're also pro autonomy. And I think people, from a macroeconomic perspective, dramatically underestimate the deflationary power of autonomous logistics. So I did this math last night with an investor. I'm like, how much time do you think US people just spend in a car in a day on average? So it's an average of an hour a day per person driving. That's 300 million hours a day. Okay. Well, let's just say we pay everybody $30 an hour. That's $1 billion a day. Like autonomy, even if you're sitting in the car and you like watch a show or whatever, or something delivers to your place instead of otherwise, but it doesn't require a person, is $1 billion a day of deflationary pressure directly, not counting reduced accidents, changes in medical. Like, man, when you look at the this current administration versus before, I think autonomy is coming 5 to 10 years faster. I think we're going to accept regulatory stuff that cuts it down, that enables it, both drone autonomy and ground autonomy. And I think the deflationary pressures from some of those infrastructure aspects coming into play are going to drive just wildly positive economic outcomes. So when I look at that whole thing, it makes us even more interested in looking at the domestic drone market and obviously grabbing the super majority market leader in a category where 100% works best for everybody.
The amount of data that you are going to have is, and I don't know if anybody knows this, but data is the new oil. I think it surpassed oil.
Nobody's heard that. Nobody's ever heard that statement.
And I think so you did a couple of things. I've never been a huge hardware play person because the cycle is the same, right? You have hardware, you are the top-notch player at this particular point in time. You've got some nice margins, and then in comes the competition. How do they go after you? They lower the price. That's the same thing for hardware all the time, right?
Yep.
I love software. So you were unusual for me to get involved with but you had a unique profile because you had literally you're setting up when there really isn't anything else, and the competitor is going to have to leave the country. So that was a very unique situation, right? Now, this story has gotten, in my opinion, I don't know, 100 times better because of this component, this Aloft. I mean, if you start looking into the company, this is an amazing company that is going to have a lot of data, and it's basically a software as a service, right? I mean,
yep, it's all software recurring revenue. But what I think one of the things, and I totally agree with you, and a lot of people are excited about it. By doing the hardware, we can control through what we do the quality and consistency of data. So now we're in a position to not even have unstructured data, but to have structured data, and to be sure that what we need out of all of this, whether it's remote ID or anything else, to be sure the skies are safe and effective, is we don't have to go back in and try to parse through, a million different formattings or whatever else. So by doing the right hardware pieces, we actually can empower a much better, cleaner data set and a faster future.
You're like the mad scientist, all the pieces are starting to come together, huh?
Yeah, you just this is one where I had to keep it in the pocket because even if you just look, if private equity went and bought them as DJI is replaced, they would know what companies to go buy before those companies knew where they were winning segments. So, I mean, you just couldn't tell everybody well, drone future domestically is this. Parts are part of the solution. I mean, if you want to be cute about it, you could call it Sky OT or something. Like in IoT, you need both the components and the data, right? And so I think when you look, that's really the future. These are robotic data aggregators, and then past that, their delivery, I think there's a lot of really interesting things that are coming. I think it's coming faster than people think under the current administration because of the deflationary value that it brings and the economic growth that comes with it.
You're talking about the actual use cases for drones in general?
There's so many already. I mean, the buildings, I've watched buildings get power washed by a drone, and it's 30% of the cost of lowering a guy from a scaffolding. What the cell phone tower companies do all their inspections that way. One of Aloft's biggest customers is Travelers Insurance, and they go out and they'll fly your building, and they do their fleet management that way. And then all of their drone pilots go through the same checklist and collect all the same data and go in. So Aloft offers any drone pilot a free app to go register. And then they do fleet management for businesses so that, and this is like a Fox News, CNN, Travelers Insurance. So you can go in and say, okay, when we fly, we do all these things. And the next thing that they're really doing is this Airboss, which takes all of these people that are already participating and creates an overall airspace management framework for manned and unmanned aviation. So they're putting the next top on the aggregation of this. And past that, then I could see people building their apps into Airboss. So now you want to take in all the video feeds because they allow live video back from all these different things to do mesh or search and rescue if police and fire decide to combine or whatever else. There's this possibility to use airspace as a platform. So I could imagine a future where you want to scan your house. Okay, a drone takes off from somewhere else and you pay for the time, and through the app you're able to register it almost like drone Uber and it comes through. And we're just seeing the infrastructure be put in place to enable that. And that to me is, I look at it like, remember when the iPhone first launched, there was the Edge network, like the very first cell data network. It feels like we're at the Edge network, like early without Uber, any of that stuff yet for drones. But the rest of these things are going to be able to be built on top. And, if you look, the hardware components in phones, like the modems and the other stuff from Qualcomm, that's where the hardware meets the software on the far end. And it doesn't matter who builds the phone, you partner with them across the board. And so we see it the same way. We're able to partner with, Red Cat or Skydio or Brink or whomever to be sure that the modems and the towers and the software work so that, you can call your Uber on an Android and somebody with an iPhone can pick you up. And so we see this as that bridge from one side and the other side with the manufacturers in the middle.
It's such, I mean, you're even painting a much bigger picture than I was even thinking. I mean, now you're getting me even more excited, right? I mean, the possibilities are endless, really, right?
Yeah, but I couldn't talk about this before because the second I talk about it, somebody goes to buy a loft before I get a chance. So I like cat's a little bit out of the bag now, in terms of what like our actual aspirations as a company. And when you look at valuations or whatever, let's not talk about that too loudly. I look at all these industries, like right now, people aren't betting on where you were. They're betting on if they believe you're going to be on a podium at the end. And there aren't that many podiums in the race, right? So in defense, you'd see like Red Cat, people are betting they're going to be on one of the defense podiums. Anduril with their $28 billion valuation. Like people are like, oh, okay, they're going to be on a drone podium. Nobody yet is running after the consumer and commercial market. So this, I think, has to change the people's perceptions of the chances of us being there at the end, because I think it does finally disclose our actual process, approach, and consideration. You'd be like, oh yeah, they were never just going to do parts, were they? Right? Like you can't tell people that out of the gate. And parts is super important problem to solve and necessary in this vision of the future. ADSB is L3 Harris. And ADSB on all manned aviation is super important for airspace management. So the parts matter.
Yeah.
And I think that's the secret is even in this vision to future, some of the components and some of the integration are absolutely necessary for it to work.
It makes so much sense. I mean, you're thinking, this is what I love about it, right? When I think the first time I interviewed you, you said, "Hey, we might be early. It's a bad." And I was like, I don't think you're early. I think you're like spot on. I think you're right on time. But you were even way further advanced than I could have thought. I mean, I would have never thought that. You caught me off guard with this one. I mean, this one. But then when I started looking into it, I said, "This is a brilliant move."
Yeah. And you know what? We might be early, but I like the guys. I think they're going to help us get there faster. And I think, we came to, um, I think we got a really good deal, both for them and for our shareholders.
I think
You
it's
know,
so exciting because what I hate to see is a lot of cash go out because what does that tell me? A lot of cash tells me they're going to take the money and they're going to run And who knows? Maybe I don't know, whenever their contract or non-compete runs out, they're going to open up a competitor, and that I hate that, right? When you see somebody take stock, what does that say? That says we're in for the long game, right? We're coming in and we want to take this to where we vision this thing, and now we have a together, like you said, you have a stronger balance sheet. You got a more powerful to get it done, right, and get it done faster. That's what's and they're all in. They're all in because they took the stock.
Yeah, I think there are a couple things here, and those guys definitely believe, and we're excited to go try to really change the future with them. I mean, they've been in the industry 10 years, and they want to manifest the outcomes for the things they're passionate about, and that's part of this. And then we all don't see anybody domestically as competitors, right? We all really are trying to go as fast as we can to catch up to where China is in terms of what they make, how they make it, the pricing and the services. And I think this is the first time, and with John and Josh, particularly the founders there and the whole team, we see a way to maybe move what we're doing for airspace management, integrated drone flight one step ahead. And so those guys are pumped to go after it, to just like natively build the future rather than go try to compete or duplicate or do whatever. And I think that's what's got me so excited about it is they're as hungry as we are. We see Part 108 with the FAA as this chance to go in to create the rules for the future and then implement it into the software. And so I think, it reminds me almost of Chat GPT-3. When that came out, everyone was like, AI is here, but OpenAI had been working for 7 years before that. We're not at the GPT-3 moment for airspace domestically yet, or maybe GPT-2, where a few people can like sit there and be like, oh. And I think it'll be once the FAA regulations come into place and all of this suddenly gets deployed, people are going to be like, drones are here. And then everyone else who's been there the whole time will be like, but they've been, yeah, drones are here. Sweet. And that's where I see this coming is so this is the launch of Chat GPT-2 for drones. Once the FAA approval cycle goes through in another 2 years, people will be like,
What did you think? Just out of curiosity, I'm curious to get your take on this. The DeepSeek thing. What did you think about when the DeepSeek thing came out and the video lost like 17% in a day? Right? I mean, did you? I mean, China has been taking our intellectual property and and working on making it better immediately, right? So is anybody shocked that an open source software that is out there, they found a way to make it better?
so I'll give you the engineering rather than the patriot answer. And because we're obviously inspired and try to do some of what Chinese companies are doing at the same time. The Chinese companies, the Chinese economy, the Chinese government, they're doing a great job of promoting technology. And this sort of reminds me of some of the positives that came from development during the Cold War. I'm not saying Cold Wars are good, I'm not saying any of that, but like the space race, like how fast did we get dudes to the moon and satellites up there for comms? Because people were, trying to get ideas from each other and getting inspired. And like, I think that competition
Such a good thing.
it can just drive things to go so much faster. And so what I think you're seeing is that competition, and it's driving an urgency and an acceleration that we haven't seen in 50 years globally. And I mean, that to me says, holy shit, the future is coming because there's a need to have it come. Like, I think quantum computing's coming 15 years faster because of it. I think people are going to be on the moon and Mars again faster because of it. I think this drive is going to cause just amazing technology movements forward, even as we see the separation and the diversification of the supply chain and some of the hiccups associated with it. So I'm not excited about two world orders. I'm not excited about an emergent Cold War. I'm not like that all sucks. Peace is awesome. But this conflict, in the positive aspects of this conflict, are just an acceleration of technology. And that is absolutely in the process of happening. So I think we're going to continue to see that.
I think we are, and this is why I say I think it's a golden era because regardless of what you think of Trump, he's a businessman. First and foremost, he's a businessman, and he wants to put the United States on the fast track of innovation, manufacturing. Wants to do the things that this country, I think, mistakenly got away from, and I think we're going to get some of it back, and I think it's going to be. It does create that competition. Competition is a good thing, man. Right? It makes us, and don't ever underestimate the American people. I mean, our ingenuity and the things that we can do. I mean, this is an exciting time. I really truly believe that. Right? And I think it's at the perfect time because the technology, the AI, like you said, quantum computers. I mean, all of that stuff is like right here, right now, right? And that
Space. I mean, it's coming.
it's good. You're not going to put it back in the bottle. It's done. It's happening, right? You're either going to get on the train or you're going to get ran over. One of the two, right?
Yeah, and in this case, because of the competition, and I think the administration's desire to remove a lot of the legislative barriers, and I think in some ways the change of perception that we aren't just the dominant world power anymore. I mean, it's still amazing, but we have a real competition again for the first time in 50 years. And like, I think that brings out the best in people in the country. And you can see a real drive to go after it and be super competitive. And to me, it's a little bit of an attitude change because my whole generation grew up with America, the dominant world nation, with no other competitors, and these stories from the before times, and before that, we won that last contest. Well, I think we can win this one too. But I think recently you're starting to see this attitude change toward going after it, and to me, that's going to push all these emergent technologies and change regulation to have it go harder and faster. So I mean, I think that honestly puts us in a great position in the drone segment, domestically outside of just conflict. And, that's what part of what has me excited about Aloft is I also think we're entering an era where, yeah, drones are going to be part of airspace management. Why? Because we have to hurry up and do it rather than, well, should we? How's it going to impact the birds? Which are all fair. Like, birds are great. But if we don't do it and we fall behind, then do we keep falling further behind because we didn't build this next base to build on top of? And so I think we're entering this era of acceleration due to competition.
Curiosity question of the people that fly drones in the United States, what percentage of people would be using a lot?
The commercial registrations for Lance Airspace, which is the FAA registration for people doing commercial flights, Aloft does about 70% of all flights. Yeah. So if you look at like ADSB or some of the other technologies, it tends to move toward 100%. So I think, those guys at Aloft have done a wonderful job. And as part of a transition and finalizing the acquisition, my guess is they will drift toward 100% unless we screw it up royally. So I guess stay tuned. I can always botch it, but we would really have to botch it. So I hope I don't have that advice that leads him down that road.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about that, man. I don't see that happening. I really don't.
Oh,
I know you're busy as hell, man. Is there anything you feel as though I've missed?
I know. I just say the one thing that happened this week that is worth talking about is I actually got to grab breakfast with Donald Trump Jr. at Mar-a-Lago to sit down with the advisor and talk to him about the Loft acquisition. And I ended up getting to spend like 2.5 hours with him, something like that, as a chunk of the morning. Because we went out and flew drones and all the other stuff. But he I didn't know he was a private pilot. So he spent time flying, and had some really wonderful insights into what just drones in the marketplace and how they're used commercially and everything else. And one of the ideas he had for Airboss, which I didn't think of, which I kind of, you normally want to go and talk to your advisor, be the one with the ideas. He actually suggested it could make a lot of sense on the borders to coordinate drone operations with the other side without giving away too much information, and then any drone not registered, you would know was a bad actor. And so those sorts of things were really great. But it's people sometimes ask me, "Hey, is he an active advisor?" And the answer is like, yes. But not only that, he is really thoughtful about and knows a whole lot about the market segment. So that was exciting.
That makes so much. That whole border thing makes so much sense to me, right?
Yeah, it did to me too. I was just mad I didn't think about it. And you're like, "Oh, okay, that's why you have advisors."
Yeah, you've done good, man. You have done good, my friend. This is going to be an exciting story and an exciting company to be part of for I think a long time to come. Right? This is
Me too. And I
I
agree.
this is a trade, right? I don't view this as I view this as you buy it, you stick it in a drawer, you own it, and in 10 years, pull it out. I think you're going to be extremely happy with what you see, right?
Well, yeah, and we'll tell everybody the same thing we always tell them: buy one share and follow along.
There was a CEO that came on my show one time and said, "Just buy one stock."
Yeah, yeah,
The
just
only
one share.
never said that ever. I love that,
Still
and
say it.
I use it.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Well, all you got to do after that is just commit to cost averaging up.
Not down, up. Cost averaging up. Right.
Either way, you know, cost averaging.
Oh, I remember that the first time you said that, and I thought that is a brilliant strategy, right? Buy one share. I mean, if you get how many people we have in the United States,
Yeah, 400 million or so, give or take.
everybody buy one share.
It's
That'd
fine.
be that'd
It's
be
fine.
pretty cool, right?
We don't have enough shares for everybody right now, but we'd find a way.
Right. That's the whole point. You don't have enough shares, and if you got 300 million people trying to buy it, could be interesting, right?
Yeah, we'd have to split, or yeah, again, we'd figure it out. I don't want people to not be able to participate. That'd be discourteous.
Funny.
Uh,
Tell you what, those people that would have bought that, because I think you were back then when you said that, I think it was trading, I want to say maybe a buck 50 in that
yeah,
area,
right in the $1.50 range. Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
one 150 would now be sitting at 12 bucks. Not
yeah.
and you're coming up on your what? 1 year?
Oh, yeah. Valentine's Day is the 1 year anniversary of our IPO.
I'd say you did one hell of a good job in a year, Alan, and I can't wait to see what comes next, man.
Same here. I look forward to chatting again. I really appreciate the time. I hope you just have a great day, sir.
All right, Alan, hold on a second. I'm going to shut this off.
Perfect.
Hey there, folks. I hope you enjoyed today's interview with CEO Alan Evans from Unusual Machines, ticker symbol UMAC. If you did enjoy today's video, do us a favor, give us a like. How about giving us a share? While you're at it, make sure you smash that subscribe button. All of those things are extremely important to us here at Alpha Wolf Capital, and we appreciate you taking the time to do that. Until next time, stay safe. Alpha Wolf Capital wishes you the very best of success.